Let's take a couple seconds to talk about the things that totally surprised us in 2023, the things that we did not expect.
Much like this entire topic is surprising me now, yes.
Yeah. Well, it shouldn't. We discussed it before the show.
I think you're putting a lot of stock into my memory, Brad.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Okay, so the first one is that, and we touched on it a little bit, we were very surprised coming into 2023 that there has been no replacement for Twitter, that none of these, not Blue Sky, not Threads. I think neither one of us thought it was going to be Mastodon. I kind of thought, I can go back and listen to the show. I thought it was going to be Threads. I was convinced it was going to be Threads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially after that launch. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really did. I'll be honest. This was again, in fairness to Brad, we did talk about this before the show. This whole segment, I had just forgotten. So I'm remembering now. Basically, we're talking about the Black Swan events. Like, yes, Brad Guigar can win an award. So these are all things that are popping up. That
anything is possible.
But yeah, I did not. I thought that Threads was based on that launch. I really thought, well, this is it. And I bet you that Threads was popping champagne and thinking that they were it in those first weeks.
First week.
I think in a way that's surprising me, society writ large is basically saying we're waiting for the next thing and no one yet knows what the next thing is. It's a weird interregnum between the death of Twitter and the next thing, or the slow fade from millennials with Facebook and what is the next thing. I don't know what the next thing is. This is me being honest. Yeah. It's probably TikTok, if I'm being honest, is the next thing. Mm-hmm. That seems to be where the youngins are going. And it doesn't, TikTok, as we've talked before, doesn't necessarily benefit us as web cartoonists.
Absolutely. Here's another thing we didn't see coming. Hall H at Comic-Con. Not only did we not see that coming, the fact that the writer's strike and the actor's strike was going to basically shut down Hall H at Comic-Con, but we did not predict, in fact, I predicted the exact opposite. We didn't predict the amazing positive effect that was going to have on artists, and it's particularly independent artists, working the floor at San Diego Comic-Con. It was a huge banner year for artists selling their stuff, mainly because Hall H had been shut down.
Yeah, and I think we had talked about it on a show prior that it turned out to be one of my better shows ever at San Diego Comic-Con. But aside from the financials, it was also just lovely how much of the focus was on comics, Brad.
Yeah.
And how wonderful that was as comics creators that we were able to be there for it and to experience that. Where 100,000 people were basically like, Hollywood's not here. I guess I'll focus on comics, was basically the attitude, don't you think?
Oh, very much so. You could tell. And again, like I was there for the first time in 10 years this past year.
Which, by the way, what a Black Swan event that was, too.
Yes. It was very well. And I got a feeling I'm probably, ramping up to go back next year. That's a pretty safe prediction, too.
Everybody, I'm excited.
If we do a live show, are you kidding me? Chance to go back to the San Diego condo and have some of that peanut butter whiskey? It's all on my list. It's all on my list. So I walked around that show floor looking for reasons that I could insist that I was right, that losing Hall H was not going to be a positive thing for people exhibiting on the show floor. And I had lots of time to walk around and try to find evidence, and I couldn't. There was everybody was having a great week. One smile was bigger than the one before. It was amazing.
Yeah.
But we did not see that coming. And even when we saw it coming, we were wrong, or at least I was wrong, about what it was going to mean. It was completely blind. We were blindsided by it. And here's the last one that is on my list here. Patreon trying to switch to social media. We did not see that coming. Patreon going from a very successful subscription, not moderator, but it supports people running subscription software. Is what basically Patreon is. Right. It supports you having a subscription. And we did not see that they were going to try to do this really big pivot to social media. And so far, I'm telling you, since I experimented with Patreon chat that first week, I've never posted again. Oh, I posted a couple times, but did not get, in fact, most of the response I got was a negative response. Like, why is this showing up? What is this? I don't like it. I don't want it. Seeing Patreon try to pivot to social media is something neither one of us saw and neither one of us particularly wants.
Yeah. And I don't know yet whether Patreon will execute on it better. As of right now, I'm not a fan of the free model, follower model, but we'll see if they execute it better with ideally with a secondary stream that's basically just a social media stream. I'd be here for that. But as of right now, the first pass, I'm really almost angrily reacting to the free follower model. And I will say, Brad, one other one that we didn't talk about in terms of things that we didn't see coming was, because this has a knock-on effect to the broader comics ecosystem, is we all saw the writing on the wall with the DC cinematic universe falling apart in the last couple of years, that they're basically going to have to relaunch completely. But I'm somewhat unpleasantly surprised by how spectacularly the Marvel universe seems to be falling apart as well. And I think we should all anticipate that aside from Deadpool, it's going to take them 2 to 4 years to sort of reset with Fantastic Four and X-Men and stuff like that. Because even though Brad and I never used or benefited from the sort of trickle-down economics of the cinema doing well, we had friends at Marvel and some at DC that were getting work based on, hey, we need to do a quick movie tie-in release for this book, or hey, we need to do some ancillary artwork for this. There was trickle-down work that was happening in comics from the cinematic stuff. And even though Brad and I never benefited from it is a hit to an already not amazing print industry for Marvel and DC if the cinematic universe doesn't generate trickle-down work, you know?
Yeah. Well, here's a real quick question, and maybe we can get into this a little bit more. A lot of people talk about superhero burnout, that we had so much superhero content everywhere we looked for years and years and years. Kind of the same way we had cowboy movies and Westerns at one point in American history. And then it just became, we were over it and we went on to other things. Right. Do you think superhero burnout is a thing? And do you think that that's going to actually have ripple effects throughout other comics? For example, anyone else who does a comic about supervillains in a corporate setting, do you think that there is going to be a wider effect of superhero burnout? Dave Kellett, I ask you.
Maybe, yes. I think that we, after 33 films for Marvel, or 32, I don't know how many it was. It's telling to me that the superhero quote unquote stuff that's doing well is all the anti-hero stuff. The Boys is doing gangbusters. Deadpool 3 is going to do fine. Venom did fine. Like, people are done with the hero's journey and want the anti-hero's journey after 33 Marvel films. So, Brad, you might be fine because you, in part, tell a lot of anti-hero journeys with Evil Link. So, you know what I mean by that? Like, it's not all good guys doing the good arc. It's also the bad people doing the good arc sometimes, or the bad people doing the bad. So also, I think you're just a way more inventive storyteller than that anyway. So you're fine is what I'm getting at. But what's your take on it? Do you think that the superhero genre is on pause or dying or dead, or where do you think it is?
I don't know. It's a fascinating debate because it gets people very wound up. I noticed, but I think it's a thing. I think superhero burnout is a thing. I think those of us who do superhero stuff are akin to people in the early 60s who were doing old Western type stuff. And I think we have to keep an eye on that or risk becoming what's the word? Anorectic and
I'm not helping you. No, you're fighting this one. You're fighting this one on your own.
Oh, there it is. Anachronistic. We become an anachronism.
Elmer Fudd. Jeez Louise.
We become out of step. God damn it. So it's a good topic for maybe a later show, but I do think those of us doing superhero comics face becoming an anachronism.
I mean, to be fair, Marvel trying to make me give a shit about, I don't know, Moon Knight or Echo or Photon or these characters that are
Madam
like
Web.
Yeah, Madame Web. Yeah. 4th tier, 5th tier characters, right? Like, that's a stretch anyway, but I have to give them credit. And Feige made me care about Guardians of the Galaxy, which when I was a comic book reader, and I did buy physical copies of Guardians of the Galaxy when I was 13, 14, 15, it was a terrible comic. Let's just be honest about that. It was terrible. I'm not kidding.
Nobody was a Guardians of the Galaxy fan in the 80s. No.
Brad, I actively made fun of Ant-Man. I actively made fun of Captain America. Those were dopey-ass comics when we were coming up, right?
Yeah.
No one was really an Ant-Man fan. And so the fact that they made us care at all, full points to them, full marks for making that happen, because they weren't great comics. Let's be honest about it, you know? The fact that Iron Man was the lead of that whole universe, Iron Man was kind of 2nd tier, 3rd tier, if we're honest about it.
3rd tier at that point. Nobody was an Iron Man fan except for a chosen few. No, and it just goes to show you that sometimes some really great stuff can come from very humble beginnings.
Right.
Just like in 2018 when a couple of web cartoonists decided they were going to do a podcast. We're still waiting for good things to come from that one, but it's good to know that one of these days it might happen. Until then, you're going to hear us remind you at the end of every show that you've been listening to ComicLab, the show about making comics and making a living from comics.
Your hosts have been my friend Brad Guigar, who in turn is waiting for his own Scott Lang moment, the editor of webcomics.com and the creator of Evil Inc. at evilcomic.com.
I've got no problems with shrinking. I need help the other way. My friend Dave Kellett, the co-director of the comics documentary Stripped and the cartoonist of Sheldon at sheldoncomics.com and Drive at drivecomic.com.
And much like when Scott Lang grows and becomes Giant Man, Brad also gets tired real quick and has to lie down on the couch for a while. So the ComicLab theme song is used with permission. Sorry, that was a pretty good joke. It's used with permission from Andy Creighton at theworldrecord.net. And this episode was edited by Matt Woodard of Woodsong Productions over at www.woodsong.media.
If you love